the July 13th meeting to order. And we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll just take a minute for a moment of silence. Thank you. And the mayor is en route. We'll just go ahead and get started with some of the other things and hold off on the new business until his arrival. So we have an agenda before you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by John Winley, seconded by Terry. Thank you. And, good. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now we'll come to our first public comment. Now is the first time we set aside for public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the board on any topic of their choosing. We do ask when you are called upon, you approach the podium. Please identify yourself by name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you are speaking as an individual and 5 minutes if you are speaking on behalf of a group. If you have written remarks, please give them to the clerk when you are finished so they can be included in the meeting record. We have a sign-up sheet and we'll call from that list, and then we'll call from anyone from the floor or Facebook or.
No one has signed up, Nick.
Okay.
And no one is submitted.
And no one submitted or raising their hand or, okay. Thank you very much. So we will close that first public comment time. And that moves us to old business.
No old business this evening.
And we'll hold off on the new business, so we'll skip ahead to committee reports.
I have none.
None for me. Up here.
And then to commissioner's agenda. Terry, do you have?
I do have a couple of items. The first item I wanted to bring up was the email that we received from Elaine Whitaker, reference the sidewalks. I did have opportunity to speak with the superintendent of the Park Service today, and he expressed that they are more than willing to work with us and help us for any safe multi-path that we may embark on. He has done some research, and they have indicated that the land between the tree line and the road actually is DOT. And there may have been some thought that at one time it was Park Service or something, but he indicated that they have found out that it is DOT, so the town would have to move forward to do something there. Depending on funding, I think this is something that we really do need to address because it would connect the areas. It's a tight budget time, and it's going to be hard to do that, but we'll just have Debbie put it on her plate, and if something develops, she can raise her flag and say, hey, here we go. But I'm all in favor of that. I'd love to see it connected. So I wanted to bring that one up. And then the next thing that I wanted to bring up was probably a question for Meredith. What are we doing to monitor the old Kmart site as far as making sure it's being kept up? Grass cut and stuff like that. It's kind of starting to look a little shabby. And, what can we do? Or do we know who's in charge of that? Or, certainly the same people own it even though Kmart's not there.
So there's two, different owners. One is the owner of the land, and one is the owner of the building and the business.
Okay.
So one pays the building tax, one pays the land tax. I've been in touch with the landowner, and, right now the lease is still active and Kmart is still responsible for the site itself. I have also informed them that their sign would have to be removed 90 days after the business is closed. That's coming up real quick, so they'll start getting letters very soon to the business, not the landowner. I've noticed that a lot of people are parking there for a beach access.
Right, yeah.
I've seen that.
And selling cars.
I haven't seen that. We can
There's
do
a couple
something.
of them out there for sale.
I can send our code enforcement officer by there to see if there's any violations out there.
But, you know, just the upkeep is what I noticed more than anything. The grass was kind of looking pretty bad, and even though Kmart is gone, we still need to.
Our vegetation ordinance is, it has to exceed 2 feet to be in violation. And then we give them 5 days to remedy the violation. And so I can send the code enforcement out to do a thorough check of the property, make sure there's not any hazards and or violations to our nuisance ordinance. And I'll do
Okay.
that tomorrow.
Well, it's just good to know that you're on top of it, because it's starting to look a little shabby.
It definitely looks empty.
Yeah.
It's amazing how quickly a building can get that look when, you know.
Sure, sure.
But we will definitely keep our eye on it, and I can keep the board informed if there are violations, who we've contacted and what responses we've gotten.
I don't know that you need to get back with us, but just knowing you're on the job's good enough.
Well, sometimes they don't respond, so I want y'all to know that we're reaching out to them. Sometimes we get ignored, and I don't want you to think that we're not trying, so I will follow up with y'all, with just a brief follow-up via email, just to let you know where we are.
Thank you very much. And, Mayor Pro Tem, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing. I was
Did
just,
you have anything?
I was gonna echo, Ms. Whitaker's email. Really that update was everything I wanted to talk about. Very excited, thank you Commissioner Gray for taking the step to speak with, Park Service staff, trying to really get that momentum there. I too am really enthusiastic about the potential of having that path. And that's really for selfish reasons, just as much for town reasons. It's something we would enjoy as a family. And, so, thank you, sir. Nice to see that happening, and, make sure I speak into the microphone here. I forgot about that. Last thing is, I'd like to, just express my pleasure with how the mask videos turned out.
Yes.
You know, the engagement was cool.
Yeah,
Overall, Dare County was really neat.
great.
The messaging was very nice and positive. I was happy to be a part of that, and really happy with the finished product. So that's all I have, as Mayor Pro Tem.
I agree. So the only thing I have this evening, and I'd actually already reached out to Rachel and Debbie earlier in the day, because I did have a citizen come and ask, come to me about the PPE litter. That's, you know, you see that, I know I see it, masks and gloves and, you know. And so she was concerned about that, so Rachel's gonna come up with some messaging that we can share
Oh,
just
super.
for, you know, people to just be aware of that debris, cause that's, you know, I'm sure we're already with the takeout and the, you know, we're creating so much more trash from this, which is understandable, but it would be nice to see it disposed of properly. So I'd just ask that, and Rachel's gonna come up with
Yes, ma'am.
some wonderful things, as she always does.
Yes. She's very creative.
Yes, she is. And that is all I have for this evening. So, for the mayor's agenda, I guess we'll skip that, and if Ben gets here, then we can come back to that.
I just got a message. He said that he's in some inclement weather,
Okay.
and in Salvo.
Okay,
So
So he's
he
not-
must be having some bad stuff down there.
yeah. Well, you said there was hail even on the,
Looked like
so
it.
he, yeah, okay. All right then. So shall we move on to the town manager's agenda in that case?
I have nothing this evening.
Alright. Casey?
No.
And then the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am, there's 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first is the minutes from the June 29, 2020 meeting. Second is a request for the board to schedule a public hearing for public input on improvements to the North Shore estuarine access. We're required to hold this public hearing before making final application for this grant. And approval of the consent agenda will schedule the item for public hearing for the Monday, August 10th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting at 6 p.m. And staff recommends approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Gary, and second from BJ. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That North Shore estuarine access is exciting.
It is.
Yeah,
Cool.
that is, that's gonna
Very
be neat.
cool. Okay. So should I go to the second public comment then?
I think the board may want to consider having some discussion on your new business
On the
item.
new business? Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, you probably just need to kick you back there.
Okay. So we will move back under new business to the proposed modifications to lighting standards, the LED accent lighting. And Meredith, is that something that you?
Thank you. As y'all recall, in May, we talked about some LED lights and the potential for some LED accent lighting at commercial businesses with limitations, with board's guidance and some conversations with individual board members. I've come up with a list of 9 possible regulations. If the board is in agreement with 1 through 9 or some portion of them, what we'll do is we'll put those in ordinance form. That ordinance would be a proposed change to 153.077 signs. And that would then go to the planning board as a proposed ordinance amendment with board direction for their recommendation and come back to you for public hearing and possible adoption. So I laid out the 9 items. I'm happy to go through them with you, or y'all can ask me questions about them. What would you prefer?
Do you have a preference? Does anyone need in-depth of 1 through 9 that maybe didn't?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I had a question on number 3. It talked about 2 strings of accent lighting. And were you talking about the 2 lines? Is that what you were talking about there?
Yes, sir. It was 2 strings, or I guess it could be more than one line, could be more than 1 string. So I would need, thank you, I can clarify that. And they're more than 4 feet apart, so they would have to be.
Could we use 2 courses? And the reason I'm saying that is because if you say 2 strings of LED lighting, somebody could think they could put up 2 strings and that was it. Whereas if you say, from an architectural standpoint, 2 courses,
I think lines would,
or
since
2 lines,
we're making it parallel, the 2
Yeah.
lines of LED string accent lights shall be permitted. Lines cannot be separated by more than 4 feet.
yeah, normally when you're talking about things like, for buildings, it's courses or something like that, not strings. Because strings could make somebody think that they can only put up 2 strings and that's it. And it doesn't define the length. So
Yes, sir.
if we could clarify that would be good, I think.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That was the only question I really had.
EJ, did you have anything?
Well, I just, one, in that they'd be 4 feet apart, so then these 2 lines would be no more than 4 feet. How is that determined? You think that's just a reasonable, or is that?
Well, we were
2
talking about it being part of possible fascia and or a parapet And that is that the parapet's average height is 4 feet.
4 feet, okay.
So that's why I chose 4 feet. From talking with board members, they didn't want one high, one middle, one low.
Right.
They wanted them to be a congruent type of accent versus all over the place.
Okay.
So, I chose the average height of a parapet, and, that's where I got the 4 feet from.
And how about the 2 inches of diameter? Is that like the average? Is that like the average?
That's a lot of the LED lights are being placed in cases or casements,
Okay.
and that is approximately 2-inch casements. You can get them much bigger,
Yeah, oh sure.
but
2 inches about average.
I was thinking,
they usually don't just put them up. They usually are embedded and have some sort of encasement to protect them. Like your signs, your freestanding signs have LED lights inside, but they are encased.
And that 2 inches is the diameter of the string or the case itself?
That would be the visible diameter of the LED light.
The actual light,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
So it can be much smaller on the inside, the bulbs will be much smaller, but the casement or the line would be wider.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it looked good. I see only horizontal, no vertical, but I don't have a problem with that.
I also put on there, it was limited to one structure, because several places have accessory structures or multiple structures, and that could get a little bit distracting at different levels and different colors. So I figured the primary structure was probably
The commercial zone, I mean, we were talking about this, I could probably look that up exactly what that is, but that does not include any of the beach road.
it does include the beach road.
Oh, it does not.
It includes the west side of NC 12.
West side of 12.
In many areas. If you look at our maps, which I did, there's not a lot of businesses. Well, where the businesses are, which is at the southern end, our average dune height is 22 feet. So if you look at a 15-foot height limit on LEDs, if you were oceanside, that bleed would not be higher than the dune. It would be blocked by the dune because our average dune height is 22. And it goes much higher, but that's the average height. So that 15-foot keeps it behind the dune so that if you're sitting on the beach trying to, see the stars or go for a nice walk or watch the moonrise or to protect the sea turtle habitat and not confuse them with extraneous lights. The south end where our businesses are, that would be protected. The north end does not have many businesses, so it's not as big an issue there. And then we have the area from Landing to Ocean Bay that is actually residential low between the highways, so that would not also fall under this guideline. So it would mostly be the southern end of town, but it is the west side of NC 12 there.
Okay. That looks good to me. Looks reasonable.
Yeah, good job.
John?
you kind of touched on, but I had one small question on item number 8, and you kind of explained it just then, the dark sky initiative. My interpretation of that is we just want to keep the beach as dark as we can at night to protect wildlife and that ambiance.
Yeah, and there's a whole website on it. It's actually pretty nifty. But many years ago, the board adopted a dark sky resolution trying to keep it dark so people can enjoy stargazing and moonrises and to protect the habitat on the east side of 12. So this does not, as much as it can, does not violate that dark sky resolution.
Good.
Thank you, Meredith. So we need a motion to send this to, or no motion, just send
You don't
it?
need a motion, just guidance from the board, and what
Okay.
we're hearing with some clarification that I think Meredith understood from Commissioner Gray. The staff will put this in ordinance form and take it to the planning board for their review
Yep.
and recommendation, and then it will come back to you.
And just to be super clear, everybody's comfortable with 1 through 9.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
That was the big thing.
Yeah, that was good work. Thank you
And
very
also,
much.
I had discussed with Meredith earlier, maybe you could help talk me through this, because I was probably the most concerned about, or I feel like I was the most concerned about the lighting and it easily getting out of control, and so we did talk about adding, the potential to add some amendments to dial it back if we do see some,
No, I think
and
it's
so I
good.
was happy to hear that as well, so,
Yep, that's good.
okay. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you wanted to cover the mayor's agenda,
Sure.
um,
Yes, I have it right here.
yeah,
Yep.
just those, well, he has the one item that's written
Uh-huh.
about the retreat,
Right.
and then there is another item that we have been discussing with him
Okay,
concerning fireworks.
sure. Okay. So, yes, I have that.
Okay, you've got that?
Yeah, I do have that, yes.
Okay, we're good.
The one the board retreat.
The retreat is just an announcement
Okay,
that we were able to lock in Saturday, the 19th.
September 19th, okay. So that,
And additional
And that's all I
information will be
need to-
provided to the
okay,
board. Just want to make sure everybody had it on the calendar.
okay. So then, also on the mayor's agenda was fireworks options.
Right, we're getting to the point, by the time the board meets again, we'll have reached a deadline. And so we had some options here that maybe the board would like to consider. If you'd like to go over those, the 1 through 5, and then the last bullet.
Okay, sure. So our options for the fireworks are as follows. Number 1, maintain the event for September 5th. Number 2 would be postponed for later in 2020 at no additional cost, provided there is a 30-day notice. Number 3 would be cancel for 2020, begin negotiations for July 4th, 2021. There's a $5,000 cancellation, $5,025 cancellation fee for this. Time requirement is that we must act within 30 days of our September 5th scheduled date. The 4th option would be to cancel the event with no intent to reschedule for 2021. This would cost the town $8,375, provided there is at least 30-day notice. Number 5 would be the cancellation inside of the 30 days from the schedule date of September 5th, which would cost $25,125. The board may also want to consider North Carolina's overall status with respect to COVID-19. If stage 3 will be in place, would that allow for more flexibility for gatherings? Staff could be given the authority to cancel or postpone the fireworks by August 5th in the event that it says stage, but I'm assuming phase 3 is not in operation by that date.
Right.
So that's a lot to think about. Should we go ahead and have a discussion? Is that,
Yes, ma'am.
that's the intent? Okay. Let's start with number 5 and go backwards, if that makes sense. So number 5 seems to me like we should just cross it off right now, because losing $25,000 just doesn't
I
sound
agree,
like
I
something
agree.
Absolutely.
I don't think any of us are interested in.
No,
So number 4 would be to cancel the event with no intent to reschedule for 2021.
and do we have a recommendation from staff on that, or
Um,
on
My-
the item?
Sure, I'd be glad to speak. I like the idea of whether or not the state is in phase 3. If we're not in phase 3, then I think we need to look at either postponing it for later 2020, or number 3, beginning our plans for next year.
Yeah.
And I feel that if we are in phase 3, August the 5th, that we would maintain the Labor Day weekend date.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I like that. And so just for clarification, in order to postpone either later or cancel the event and begin negotiations for 2021, both options 2 and 3 would need a deciding date by August 5th. Is that correct?
Postponing it later in 2020 would not need an answer by August the 5th for the date. There would need to be a 30-day notice.
Okay.
So we could, but I think you could start thinking about a date. I mean, thinking about something.
Right. Okay.
I don't know, it's something that just popped in my head was December 17th.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just trying
For
to
this-
think of something
Yeah,
that you
for the flight.
Good idea.
can tie it with.
Or even
Very
New
good.
Year's.
Or New Year's Eve,
Yeah,
absolutely.
New Year's Eve, just do something. Okay. Okay.
And certainly the staff would be in touch with the board as we got closer to August 5th, we could start to have a feel for whether or not we were gonna be in phase 3.
Right.
I could start some dialogue again. But we just didn't want we didn't wanna wait till we were there
Sure.
and not have a
Right.
conversation with you.
I like your
Right.
plan.
Yeah, I like that as
I
well.
like your plan of action. I think that's a good one. That's not.
EJ?
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought it was gonna be better on Labor Day than it was July 4th to begin with, so I'm not surprised, but I would say that if phase 3 does not happen, which I'm not sure it will, that, rescheduling it for 2020 would be a really, it's still a possibility, but, it's hopeful thinking, at least, and, that would be my first choice after moving off Labor Day weekend again.
I like the plan. Everything hinges on getting to phase 3 by August 10th.
Right.
And if not, then we do some really fun and non-conventional a little later in the year. Something to look forward to.
Sure.
What do we have to, August 5th or August?
August 5th.
5th, okay.
New Year's Eve really would be interesting.
I knew what he meant.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, okay. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
December 17th.
Yeah, December 17th.
Now, what else might be easier
Yeah.
to schedule them for December 17th as well?
Certainly.
Probably not a very popular date elsewhere.
No, and social distancing would probably be a little easier.
Easier.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
true.
It could be
Yes,
cold,
true.
but
Yeah.
it'd be different.
Okay. All right,
I don't need a motion, I
Okay.
got this.
Great.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Our fingers crossed.
Yes.
All right, so we move on to public comment, second public comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we will open it up for the second public comment. Should I read this again? So now we have come to the second public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the board on any topic of their choosing. We do ask that when you are called upon, you approach the podium. Please identify yourself by name and address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes if you are speaking as an individual and 5 minutes if you are speaking on behalf of a group. If you have written remarks, please give them to the clerk when you are finished so they can be included in the meeting record. We have a sign-up sheet and we'll call from that first, and then we'll call anyone from the floor.
No
Or
one
Zoom,
signed up, ma'am.
or Facebook, or,
No, ma'am.
okay. All right, we will close the second public comment. And there's no response to public comment, so I guess it is time to adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second that motion?
BJ, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
You gotta make it, yeah.
we're done. Good job.
Adjourned.